Hi there. I'd like to tell you a little story. It's really wonderful. It was retold by Howard Schwartz. It's called A Student in Magic. Now, there was this once upon a time kind of life. And in that kind of life, there was a young Jewish student, and he really wanted to study magic. Now, a wandering magician had passed through his town one day, and he'd learned a few tricks from him, but he wanted to learn more. So he decided that he was going to the far-off land because there was a really great sorcerer, and so he wanted to go and study with this great sorcerer. Well, on the third day of his travels, he stopped at an inn, and the innkeeper asked him, "Young man, where are you going?" And he said, "Oh, I'm going to study magic. I have to go very far away." "Must you go so far?" said the innkeeper. "Why not stay with me? I will teach you magic." Now, the student found this really hard to believe because this, after all, was the innkeeper. But he was really polite, and he said, No, thank you. I think I'll move on." "Well," the innkeeper said, "so be it. I won't try to stop you. But you know, you have been traveling a long time, so why not stay here the night and have a little rest?" The student was hot, and he was dusty, and he went to the well, and he lowered the bucket. When he brought it up, he splashed all the water on his face, but when he opened his eyes, the well had vanished, and the inn was nowhere to be seen. Instead, he found himself standing alone on a rock, and there was a ship right there, and the ship was about to set sail. Well, afraid of being left behind, the young man decided to board the ship, and after several weeks, the ship arrived in a beautiful city. The young man left the boat, and he wandered around and around, and everywhere he went, the people, they seemed very sad. And the young man wondered why. At last he learned that the princess of that land, well, she couldn't stop crying. Imagine that, a princess who couldn't stop crying. Her pet bird had died, and absolutely no one could console her. Well, the king had announced that whoever could make her laugh again, well, he could marry the princess and receive half of all the king's wealth. But, as fairy tales go, whoever would fail to do this would lose his head. When the young man heard this, he went directly to the palace and offered to try his luck. So the young man was taken to the princess's room. He saw her sobbing into her pillow. Well, what could he do? All he knew how to do were a few magic tricks. So he decided to show them to the princess. Watch closely, the young man told her, and then he pronounced a spell. And a white bird appeared right out of nowhere. The princess watched it in amazement as the blue flew round and round and round the room. And after that he pronounced another spell, and a white rose appeared right out of thin air. Finally, the young man pronounced a third spell, and the bird snatched the rose out of his hand and took it right to the princess, dropping it in her lap. The princess began to laugh and laugh and laugh out loud. The magic bird delighted her, and she cried no more. Well, when the king learned that the princess had actually stopped crying, he was overjoyed. So the wedding of the princess and the young man took place. And so it was that the young man became a member of the royal family. Now, as time passed, the king came to trust the young man and often sent him on important missions. And once it was necessary for the young man to journey by ship to a very distant city, so he took leave of the princess, and off he set sail. The ship had been at sea only 7 days when the winds began to come up, and the storm happened, and the seas tossed and turned and tossed and turned, and all at once the ship was struck by lightning, and it sank to the bottom. Of all those on the ship, only the young man survived. For 3 days and 3 nights he clung to a plank, and this plank carried him through the currents, through the waves, suddenly to an island. With the last of his strength, he managed ever so slowly to swim ashore, and as he lay there exhausted, he heard a voice say, "What's keeping you so long, young man? What's keeping you? If you don't hurry, your food will get very cold." Cold? What food? The young man looked up in amazement, and what did he see? He noticed the innkeeper. That innkeeper was standing over him. And then he noticed that he was lying on the ground next to a well. He remembered that well. He had seen it at that inn that he had stopped at, why, ever so long ago. When the innkeeper saw the young man's confusion, he said, "You know, it was my magic that made you imagine all those things. In fact, everything that you thought you did, that was only an illusion. Only an hour has really passed since you went to the well. Now, you see, you really don't have to travel to any distant lands to learn the arts of magic from a sorcerer great beyond. No, you will find that you can learn your magic right here. Remain with me, and I will teach you. No need to go there. Stay here. I will teach you all the magic you know. It's right here." The young man decided that that was the very thing he would do, and so he did. He stayed there with the innkeeper to learn all the magic that he needed to know. A great little story. Thanks for listening.